Haboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis, starting with Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah speaks about the Avodas HaKitaris, that the Kohen Gadol is given a kaf and a machta. The machta is filled with kitaris, whereby he takes two handfuls, a molechayfnov of that kitaris, and then he pours it into the kaf, whereby he then takes the kaf in his left hand. He takes a different machta that he had filled up with gacheles, with coals, and he then walks towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Mishnah, which says, Chofan Meloi Chofnov, V'nosan L'toich HaKaf, this is the avodah of Chafina, and that's what the Gemara now discusses. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, first bringing a brayso about being koimates, a mincha offering. Bekoim tzoi. It teaches me shalo yaseh midas lekoimet, midah lekoimates. When it comes to koimates, the taking of a handful of 3 fingers that the kohen takes of the flour or the mincha offering that he's taking, that the Gemara says, quoting the brayso, he shall not have a midah for its koimates. That means to say that it has to come from his hand itself. He can't use a measuring cup. And therefore, bekom tzoi, shelo yasem midah lekoimates. Iboilahu, the Gemara asks, what about chafina? Mao sheyasem midah lechafina. Can you make a midah for chafina? Can you take, let's say, a bowl or a cup or a kaf in order to then measure out the chafina? Hasom hu deksiv bekoim tzoi. In regard to the mincha, it says bekoim tzoi, with his koimates. Aval hocha de leksiv bechafnov elab meloi chayfna ketores samim daka loy. But over here, in regards to chafina, it doesn't say chayfnov, it says meloi chafnov. It doesn't say bechafnov, and therefore, perhaps, then you don't require it to be dafka with his hands, but rather it's the amount that would be fitting in his hands, and that could be done with a kaf or a cup or a bowl, some sort of kli. That's one side. Oy dilma yolif maloi maloi mikum tzoi. Or perhaps we learn now from koimates of the mincha offering, and just like by koimates, mincha says maloi koim tzoi, and has the word moloi. Over here, where it says moloi choifnov, we can like Zohar Gzeir Shava, teaching me that it also requires the actual hands to then take the kitaris. The Gemara says, Toshma, let's bring a proof. V'kach haisa midasa. Our Mishnah says the word v'kach haisa midasa. My lav she'im rotza lasois mida. And the Bach takes out the word acheres and says mida oise. Is it not talking about if he wants to then use a measuring cup or a kaf, he may do so? And therefore, we can then prove from this Mishnah that indeed you don't have to use your actual hands. The Gemara says, Loi, you have no proof from here, because Hachi Kamar, this is the intention of the Mishnah when it says, V'kach haisa midoso, V'kach haya choizer, V'choifna lifnim. Just as over here, the Kohen Gadol takes with his hands and draws out the kitaris from the machta, 2 handfuls, maloi choifnov. So too, when he's inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he must take then from the opposite direction, from the kaf that's filled with the kitaris, he must then pour it into his hands. The same way, v'kachi midoso, and therefore we'd have no proof. Shma asmina, the Gemara says we can prove from here l'chara, then chayfen v'chayz v'chayfen, that indeed just like he was chayfen, he did chafina, again taking from the machta filled with ktaris into his handfuls and pouring into the kaf. So too, when he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he also must take the ktaris from the kaf and pour it into his handfuls. And that would be a kasha, because the Gemara is mistapik later on about this question. And if it was indeed true from our Mishnah that you can prove this way, that he does have to do so, then there would no be question from the Gemara later on, it would be able to be posher from our Mishnah, and it doesn't do so. So the Gemara says, Dilma she'im ratza lasas mida oise, oy inami shelo yechsa v'shelo yoisir, meaning to say you can't prove one way or the other from our Mishnah when it says kamal midasa. We don't know what it means to say that it's indeed something that can be done with a measuring. Maybe it's not. Maybe it has to be done with his melech choifnov. And therefore we can't prove that way, and we can't also prove that it's melech choifnov. Maybe it just means that it has to be the same amount that is in his hands. It has to be exact. So either way, we cannot prove one way or the other. Tanu Rabban, the Gemara now brings a brayso that says as follows: Meloi kumtzoi yachol miburatz. When it talks about, again, taking out a meloi kaimetz for the mincha offering, whatever is filled to the brim, where it's filled, it's over full. What happens? I might think that's also going to be part of the kaimetz. Tamulome bikumtzoi. Bikumtzoi means with its kaimetz, with the amount that the fingers are covering the cavity of the palm. Maybe, therefore, if it's bikaimtsoi, then it means just going to then closing to the ends of the fingers, the most minimum amount, not what we thought the maximum amount. Therefore, it's a meloi kaimtsoi, like a regular person makes the kaimitz when he then closes his fingers. The Gemara now explains how that's so. Hey, keitzad. Choife shalosh etzba'osav al pisas yodeh v'kaimitz. He takes the 3 fingers. The kohen then closes those 3 fingers to the end of his palm, whereby that area in between, that inside that fills up that cavity of mincha, of the flour offering, that will be considered to be the kaimetz that is burnt on the mizbeach, and the remaining amount that is left over will then be eaten by the kohanim. On top of Mem Zayin Amud Beis, uvemachvos uvemarcheshes moichek begudoloi melamalo beetzboi ketana melamato. When he takes the kaimetz, the kohen, for the mincha offerings of a machavos or marcheshes, here we're talking about where it's either baked or fried, and then afterwards it's put into small pieces, and then the kaimetz is taken out. So there it's more complicated. So there it's going to be sticking out. From there, the kohen must then take with his thumb the gudal and then take off the brimming amount. Similarly, on the bottom side, with his pinky, he also has to then take off the brimming amount. The Gemara points out, there's a very difficult avoida in the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because he can't take it out in a way that part of the inside will then be removed, because then it'll be chaser the kaimetz. He has to be very careful to break off that which is sticking out, but whatever is inside will remain. And therefore it's a very difficult avodah. The Gemara asks, Zuhi v'suloi. This is considered to be avodah kosher b'mikdash, and that's it. Only this is. Ask the Gemara, v'ha'ika milika. We have the avodah malika, which is a very difficult avodah. The kohen who performs the malika, he takes the bird, and he has to then sever with the thumb's nail from the back of the bird's neck. That's how he so he slaughters the bird. V'ha'ike chafina, and there's also the chafina that we've been describing, which requires the kohen gadol to take moloi choifnov. It has to be that amount exactly that he had taken on the outside and put into the kaf. That's the amount that has to be then used in the kodesh hakodoshim and be burnt. Elazu hi ma'avodas koshois. Rather, the Gemara explains that it didn't mean singular, but this is of the difficult avoidos in the mikdash, which would include other avoidos as well. Rabbi Yochanan says, Boi Rabbi Yoshua ben Uzo ben Habenim shel Maloi Koimtsoi Mahu. What about when we're talking about taking that kaimetz? The kohen takes the mincha offering, and he takes the flour, the kaimetz that we just described. He asks, what about that part that is not exactly outside, not exactly inside? So how do we don that? Is that part of the kaimetz, or is that considered that which is shia b'shirayim? Omra pope. Rav Papa said, that part which is inside, that certainly is going to be part of the koimetz. Similarly says, the broi lo tiboy loch devade shiraimu. We're also not asking about that which is on the outside. That's clearly shiraim, not part of the koimetz. So what is the question that we're asking? Ki tiboy loch the beini mai. That which is in the middle. It's not sticking out. It's not also inside. So therefore you can see it, but is it considered part of the koimetz or is it part of the shirayim? How do we don it? Says the Gemara, Om Rabbi Yochanan Hodar Pashta Yoshua ben Uzo Beina Beinam Sofek Ninu. He says that part is indeed treated as Sofek. And therefore, Hechi Ovid asked the Gemara, how do we then deal with it, if indeed it's considered to be a Sofek? Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Chanino, Makdir Koimetz L'chudei Techila, V'hodar Bein HaBeinayim. You first burn the koimetz on the mizbech, and then this part that is beinayim, the part that is in sofek, dafka in this order. The amr is beinayim bereisha, because if you flipped around the order and first then burnt the beinayim, then dilma shirayim ninhu. Maybe that is considered to be shirayim and not koimetz. V'havul shirayim shechostu ben kamitz lahaktoro, whereby you'll have the shirayim that is lacking between the taking of the kamitza and the burning. V'omamar, and we have a statement that stated, shirayim shechostru ben kamitza lahakdora ein maktin alein as hakometz. If you do have shirayim that are considered to be chostru between the kometz and the hakdora, then indeed it's not considered to be a valid kometz. You can't burn the kometz on the mizbeach. Yehochi asked the Gemara, if you're going to do it in this order, you're going to first burn the koimetz and then the beinayim, because it's a suffix. Ask the Gemara, hochi hashtanami ikrikan. Then now also we can apply what it says. Kol shemimenu liishim harehu bebal taktiru. Whatever is going to be for the ishim, for those to be burnt as an offering, then it's considered to be an iser bal taktiru. So how can you go ahead and burn the koimetz and then after the bein habeinayim, which may be shirayim, and therefore they will then invalidate the koimetz as well? Says the Gemara, Amar Yehuda Berei Rabbi Shua ben Pazi the makdir le lishum eitzim. What you do is you make it t'nai. If this is koimetz, then that which I'm burning, the bein habeinayim, is going to be part of the koimetz, and it's going to be valid. If it's not part of the koimetz, then I'm burning it l'shem eitzim, just as fuel for the burning of the koimetz, for the mizbeach. The Tanya for Rabbi Eliezer making such a statement. Rabbi Eliezer oimer l'reach nichoyach iato maile. If it's for l'reach nichoyach, for an offering that's going to be then used to be eaten afterwards, then you can't bring it up. Aval ata maile l'shum eitzim, but you could bring it up for eitzim. What's he talking about? It's explained. Rashi explains over here. We're talking about a case where a korban oila and a korban chatos were both the evorim are on the mizbeach. Now, korban chatos is to be eaten. Korban oila is to be completely burnt. So if he then has the korban chatos that is mixed over here with the oila, and he says the korban chatos is going to be only for ishim, for eitzim, for fuel for the burning of the oila, then that's fine. However, if he's going to then use it to be eaten, that you can't be. That'll then invalidate both the chatos as well as the oila. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, you can make such a burning l'shem the eitzim, and it's valid. The Chacham, of course, are arguing on the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer, and they say no. They say that both things have to be left on the mizbeach. It's not going to be valid. Hanich Rabbi Eliezer, and therefore the Gemara asks, that's very good in Rabbi Eliezer, who says you can do it l'shem eitzim. And therefore, over here as well, you can take this, what's the suffix over here, and say that if it's shirayim, it's just l'shem eitzim. El Rabbanan, my ikalamema, what are you going to do with the sheet of the Rabbanan? Answers the Gemara, Omer of Mari, the kamtzi shmeini. No, we're talking about where the kaihanim that do perform the koimetz, they have thick hands, and therefore there are fatty type of fingers, whereby there's not going to be an issue of the suffix. It says the Gemara then, hashta da osis lahachi, once you say that lechatchila we're talking about, that a kohen who has thick fingers is doing the koimetz, and therefore there's not this case of bein habeinayim, Then Rabbi Eliezer Nami lechatchila the kamsei shmeini. Then he would also say the kamsei shmeini. He doesn't have to come on to the situation where we said in the fact that it's a suffix, you burn the kaimet and make it tnai, and then go ahead and burn the bein habeinaim. That you would do only if you have no choice. But if we're talking about lechatchila, that you're coming to take the kaimetz from hands that are thick, whereby there's not going to be a case of bein habeinaim, then there's no suffix, and even Rabbi Eliezer would say, go ahead, like the Rabbanan, and go ahead and burn the entire kaimet on the mizbeach.